Hey, Picasso's freestyle. Let's do it. Hey, eating a couple wings with a couple kings. They're my favorite things. Hey, hey. That's all I got. I'm not a good freestyle rapper. Wait, hold on. Let me think for a second.
Folks, hope you are having a great Hawkeye Humpday. It is never a bad time for Picasso's Pizza, just like it is never a bad time for a new episode of Marvel content on Disney+. And of course, that's what we're talking with Hawkeye Humpdays, the 4th episode of Hawkeye, now out on Disney+. Be careful because, as always, spoilers ahead. But before we get into that, let's get our consultant in here, our main man, the Majka Man. Take Majka. How are we doing today, sir?
We're doing great. I think earlier in this year it was just me and Casali, and now it's me and you, Maniac, holding it down. Going to be a great show, and it was a fun episode of Hawkeye today. After the start of the week we had in Buffalo sports, I was very much looking forward to just settling in with a nice episode of our favorite archer, I guess. I don't know. Maybe Kate's kind of my favorite at this point, I think, but we can save that for later in the show or whatever. But this is a great episode. I'm excited to get into it with you.
Super excited. I mean, let's face it. Last week's episode was one of the most intense, action-packed out of any of the new Marvel series that we've gotten. So Hawkeye obviously picking up steam, and we are into episode 4. So we're now over halfway through the series, about 2/3 done at the conclusion of this episode. So getting into it on episode 4, I mean, the first thing that sticks out, obviously, we do have the interaction between the family and Hawkeye, a little bit of a sit down at the dinner table. But the first thing that sticks out to us regular Joe Schmoes, it's great to see Hawkeye icing up with some vegetables, some icy products out of the freezer. Made him super relatable.
Yeah, he's like when he's on the phone at some point with Laura here early in the thing, he's like, nothing's broken, don't worry. And I feel like I've said that after like every sporting event I've ever been, like limping around or anything. Like, nothing's broken, like it's fine. Yeah, man, it's interesting because we've been talking about, you know, kind of what's going to happen with him by the end of this series. We've alluded to it a little bit and everything, but yeah, you don't see Thor. Thor was never icing up his knees after fighting.
We were just talking about it. He rides the Rainbow Ridge between like 7 realms, does like a power superhero land. He doesn't even need like an iced tea. It's ridiculous.
Hulk literally fell through a building, like crashed an entire building around him, and just Bruce Banner just walked up. He was like, "Nah, I'm good." I mean, that's the Hulk.
And he was more worried about Thanos. He wasn't worried about his personal health at all.
No, not at all.
Thanos is coming. And speaking of Avengers level threats, it's got to be one of our favorite terms in the MCU, right? Because anytime you hear those 3 words, you know there's some serious business going on. This time, they get used by Eleanor Bishop. And let's get into this scene because obviously last week's episode ends with Jack kind of, doing the on guard. But in this opening of the episode, we realized he was really just defending the penthouse. It wasn't any pent up animosity. It wasn't some big reveal. It was more just seeing that, wow, someone's in our house and I need to protect us. And I guess the nearest thing was a sword. Little sus there. But what did you think of this tension packed scene and the interaction there?
Yeah, so I went into the whole thing last 2 weeks. I've been like, listen, Clint, in the comics, these guys know each other. Like some fireworks are going to come right out episode 4. And it didn't happen. And it makes me wonder, it made me more sussed out by Jack for him to not mention anything. Like he was very casual with the fact that Hawkeye was in his apartment. Like at least
we got to talk about this. Their silence, first his silence in that regard, and their casual nature at just having an Avenger in their penthouse was probably the most sus thing in the overall scene.
Yeah, like Eleanor's talking to him, walking him outside and just like, yeah, just don't get my daughter hurt. Like, I know you're out here, who knows what you're doing as an Avenger, but just, make sure she's okay. Like, no worry. Like, I would imagine, like, if that were my parents in that scenario, or like, I guess a lot of parents, they'd probably be like losing their minds, like trying to kick this guy out, call the police. Like, you could see a lot of emotional reactions. There was zero emotion. They were just like, oh, Hawkeye's here. Nice to see you, Clint. You want to come have like some tea with us? Like, come hang out, pick your brain a little bit. He's like, thank you for saving the world, by the way. And he was like, what? He's like, thanks for saving the world. It was like, what is going on, Ray? It just felt like my skin was crawling for Clint a little bit sitting in that house because it must have been an awkward situation for him.
It didn't feel like anything good could happen for Clint. He's explaining that he's been working with virtually a teenage daughter. I know Kate Bishop keeps saying she's 22 or whatever, but let's face it, when you're a parent, that's basically still a teenager. But yes, we got to get into this because the whole time, Eleanor Bishop has kind of been in the background, everything. We've seen her talking with, some of the criminal people. We've seen her casual nature around Jack. At this point, who is more sus to you? Jack is almost becoming like a red herring in all of this. And it seems like Eleanor might be the one with something to hide and something going on in the background here.
Yeah. Eleanor is the one from the first episode who was talking to Dumond, or I can't ever remember that guy's actual name, but she was the one that was getting scolded by him at the beginning, right? And that's what you were like, part. Oh, yeah, like what's going on here? And then she makes this right after we see our guy Clint leave the premises, and she makes a very interesting phone call too. Like she's the one making moves. Like Jack's just kind of around. Like
Jack is happy-go-lucky in everything. We haven't seen one sign of like intelligence. When he fences Kate Bishop, there's like no animosity there. He literally wants to let her win. Something that you would do if you were trying to woo a mother. So it's his behavior. It's either a reverse red herring, to kind of get us to think that he is maybe not a threat, and then they're going to unveil something. He's like, by the way, have you seen Better Call Saul?
No, I haven't.
Because this actor who plays Jack, I can't remember, but he comes on to like season 4 of Better Call Saul. And he's like a brother of the Salamancas or whatever. And he is by far the most like evil, ruthless, ridiculous one. So I'm waiting for him to unleash this. But yeah, I mean, to me, Eleanor, all eyes are on her. Something is definitely going on. And I'm not taking my eyes off until I see a twist, a reveal, something.
Well, I think they were smart, though, because they knew comic book fans like me and anybody else was going to look this guy up. And the first, they had the same thought I had at the end of the last episode, right? Like, oh, so we're going to get, this explanation of their history, whatever. And they just didn't even touch it, didn't even go near it, barely even had them interact after that point. It was all Eleanor really kind of doing the interrogating of Clint. It was more like I don't even know. It was just like a casual, like, oh, what are you doing here? Like, nice to see you. Like when you bring your friend home from school or something like that. Like it wasn't an interrogation, but there was no animosity from Jack towards the situation at all, not wondering what was going on.
And Eleanor's job is in security, right? Like just making sure. So she gets an alert that her computer has basically been hacked into 10 minutes ago. And she's not worried, even though she's the head honcho of like, so it all goes back into this casual nature. You got Hawkeye with a B&E with Eleanor, with Kate, and it just doesn't add up. I don't know. Mephisto confirmed maybe for Jack. I don't know.
So do you think that I guess with Eleanor, is it her just being so diabolical that she can really play it off, or does she really trust her daughter? Like, or does she just really love her daughter and not want anything to happen to her? Because she was like Kate, she knew Kate was the one who broke in, and she was not really that upset. Like, you would think you would be a little more concerned. I don't know if she knew what she was looking for, if she could see like what files she accessed or not, because they were obviously looking up our boy Kazi, who was involved with the tracksuit mafia and everything, found out he was involved with the corporation and everything, but she didn't ask any of those questions. So like, I'm wondering like how much, like where her level of trust
you know why you don't ask questions? Because you already know the answers.
That's true.
And that's exactly what's going on. So that's the thing is I keep seeing, every time I expect Eleanor to be like beat down or like, oh, I got to get out of this situation. She seems like the strongest willed out of everybody. It just seems like something is up with her. And whether, again, they want, I don't know, is this like how they drag on Kang for 4 episodes, or whatever, but just very interesting. It's very peculiar to me.
It just occurred to me too with that too, is that, as you said, that like if you don't ask questions because you already have the answers, like Kate is basically leading her to what Kate is looking into, right? Like Kate's asking her all these questions about Jack and her as their uncle and all those connections and everything in that fencing scene. Like she was basically trying to interrogate her. So right after that, Eleanor's like, okay, I know what Kate knows. I know what she doesn't know. Like I know where she's going to try to look next and everything. So then Kate gives her this other clue, logging into her laptop, looking up whatever. Sure, she didn't have the time to delete the search history there. They probably know what she was looking at and everything. So Kate, by just trusting her mother more than she's trusting Jack, is kind of just leading along Eleanor to follow the tracks of what they're doing too. And maybe that's what we're getting at here, is that she's just been kind of not covering up those breadcrumbs for her mom because you know, it's her mom. Like, why would she expect that? But
no, you're absolutely right. She's in a perfect position to discover those breadcrumbs because basically Kate's asking her to help throw them out. She's explaining everything. So I get it. No, 100%. Hey, well, here at What's TrainWreck watching, whether it's just us or if we have our main man Hollywood Joe Casale on, it is never a problem with teaming up. But throughout this dialogue, it seems like Hawkeye wants to be a one-man show. And whether that's because, he looks at Kate as so young and doesn't want to put her in danger, whether he looks at her as a liability to him or the recklessness of the Ronin costume. What do you think on the dynamic between Haley Steinfeld and Jeremy Renner here? Because I think a lot of people liked it, and I enjoyed it for the most part.
I think this was like the best episode of showing like them working together and like the actual like the good chemistry. Because
how they don't just outright love each other. Like, because you're right, in 2 and 3, it was almost like they were hit the ground running and they were ready to go, even though she's fallen from the ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's been good. And I think that it's Kate Bishop, the way that they're portraying her is very, it's a little different from what I remember in the comics and everything else with her. But I like the way that they're making her look formidable right away too. Like when they're having the little impromptu Christmas party there and she's able to, snap that coin that Clint snaps, like just in.
By the way, were they basically doing like quarters? I couldn't pick up that form.
Some pretty damn impressive quarters if you can knock somebody unconscious from 20 feet away. But she obviously
an old TV set.
But she clearly like has the skill set and everything, and that was the biggest thing I think they needed to sell right away. Is like, okay, you're introducing us. We like everybody in the world knows that we're getting all these different younger Avengers, what they're trying to build up. You have to, we have history with Hawkeye, even though it's Hawkeye, like he's been the butt of a lot of Avengers jokes throughout the years, whatever. He's still been around since, Thor, like he's literally like since one of the original movies and has just kept showing up. And this is finally his spotlight. So if you're bringing somebody else, when you're having trouble getting the, I don't know what the right word I'm looking for here is, but getting the respect that Clint had deserved as an Avenger, like they're trying to build that up obviously through the show, and then introducing another person who does the same thing. That was a tough challenge. I was wondering how they would get to that, but I think they've done a really good job making Kate formidable while also like showing us plenty of times that she's a 22-year-old kid who thinks she knows everything and doesn't know everything like every other 22-year-old kid does.
Absolutely. Like, for example, having her name on the buzzer when she knows she's hanging. Oh, there's something that Clint Barton wouldn't do. But you're right. It's interesting because Clint really, or, Hawkeye, obviously, he had a couple moments. They obviously had the big quest with him and Black Widow in Endgame itself. But he's never really had an opportunity to stand out on his own as Avenger. So this is that first series to do that. And you're right. They're also using it to kind of jettison a new potential Avenger, one that some people think, was it you who was speculating that she might start Avengers Mansion?
No, I would love that though.
Okay, because I think I was reading that somewhere, but in the comics, didn't Tony do that? And obviously, spoiler alert, he's not going to be able to do that for this round. But I've been reading about that because she already has the huge penthouse and everything. So
she does.
Very interesting to see there.
They also
go ahead.
They also have I'm just in the comics right now. If you haven't seen Eternals, go see Eternals. But the big head in the ocean right now, or wherever the hell it is, the Avengers live currently not in a mansion, but just in a former body of a Celestial. So they might be improving the grounds from a mansion to get up. So who knows? Maybe that'll be the young Avengers. The kids are gonna have to just live in the lowly mansion while the adults get to go hang out in the dead god planet.
You just gave me borderline entertainment PTSD. Have you ever seen Lost?
Yeah.
Okay, so in Lost, they have like in season 3, they find that huge statue on the island or whatever. And then season 6 opens up and it shows the statue is at the bottom of the ocean. And you're like, how the hell did that happen? So now I'm just imagining that the Avengers are on the Lost Island with John Locke, which would be incredible. But speaking of incredible, obviously once we entered phase 2, Marvel kind of discovered, hey, we don't have to break the budget to get 2 Avengers or a couple Avengers in each flick. And it really strengthens the movie, whether it was Thor Ragnarok, obviously Captain America Civil War is a full ensemble, but, looking at those and thinking about this team up right here, I was wondering what 2 Avengers or maybe 3 Avengers, if you want to bring in a group like the Guardians or something, who would you like to see have like their own series or quest? I was going to start you off with, this one will be cheating, but obviously Thor and Star-Lord. My other one would be Sam as Captain America with Bruce Banner. I think with just Bruce Banner, not as Hulk, kind of like Bruce Banner being the man in the chair, could be a little good series there. But what Avengers you thinking you might like to see team up?
I do enjoy that. Couple? All right, so yeah, we talked about this a little bit before, and I was trying to think about. I think Spider-Man has to be in. Spider-Man's is a lot of great team ups in the comics with guys we haven't seen in the MCU. So I'm not going to use that because they're cheating. But
from Happy Hour Hoops, I'm going to put you on the spot right now.
Go for it.
Spider-Man to the MCU is who in the NBA right now?
Well, the easy answer is Donovan Mitchell because he's Spider. So
agreed, Spider Mitchell. That is
and Mitchell. Honestly, it kind of fits though because Mitchell
up and coming
again this year,
superstar,
up and coming.
Yep.
Waiting to take that next step. Maybe that's this year. And I think, Spider-Man's about to get that next step with No Way Home. It's about to be a big deal. So yeah, I think Spider fits for it. But I'll definitely give I'm going with Captain Marvel because you know what? It's kind of weird right now because he's a lot younger than Captain Marvel is. But in the comics, there is like a funny thing where Peter Parker's kind of always trying to hit on Carol Danvers and it's never working. So that's what I'm rolling with because I think that would be hilarious to see Carol Danvers the way she is, sarcastic as hell, dealing with this little kid, this kid from New York.
And I like the idea too. I like that idea because Peter Parker became a superhero. He gets knighted as an Avenger, in the Infinity War. But then he's in the battle in Endgame, and he basically thinks all is lost. He hands off the gauntlet to Captain Marvel and says, like, oh, how are you going to get through those? Like, people like, don't worry, she has help. But seeing, that he would be a superhero, he would be in this, in the Avengers and everything, and still not believe in another superhero, I think it could get a real good dynamic off of that. The other one was, unfortunately, and obviously I would love it to be Chadwick Boseman, but Thor and Black Panther. I mean, obviously, because you could always play off the angle like you came to save Wakanda, because he really did. He crashed landed in Wakanda and demanded to be seen. Probably the most amazing scene in Infinity War. And speaking of amazing, obviously we get Hawkeye. He's icing stuff up. He's still checking with home. I don't know. We need like a calendar or like in Christmas Vacation when they would show you that a day was passing because I know that they had like a week to Christmas and it feels like all these things are taking like 6 to 7 days each. And again, I'm not second guessing because you don't see constant sunrise, sunfall. It could just be 36 hours an episode basically. But like, what are they? Maybe 3 days away from Christmas now? 2 days away from Christmas at most, it feels like?
Yeah, so has it been like one a day? Like, is that what we're doing? Like,
that's what I'm thinking. Because it was a week till Christmas, right?
Yeah, so I wonder, I think we're getting every day and maybe the finale is Christmas Eve going into Christmas Day, something like that. Like, that's what I'm wondering too. Yeah, and it's like there's a lot going on in these days, bro. Like, how are they sleeping? Like, when are they getting all their food? Like, these guys are out here running around. Like, they need get that man a slice of pizza or something. Like, golly.
Seriously. And speaking of pizza, I mean, a person who's, the intro to Pizza Dog continues. I'm not exactly loving, the way that it's fitting in. So I was expecting a little bit more, I guess I would say. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yes. I hope that the dog needs to come through a little bit.
Still tons of room for Pizza Dog to save the day, though. I mean, let's face it. There is no limit there. So obviously... So break this down for me in the last scene. So we're getting the Rolex watch. And to be honest, that was a little bit lost on me for a second there. What explain to our viewers again, as we head down the stretch here, obviously, don't forget, spoiler alerts for episode 4 of Hawkeye. We really haven't talked too much spoilers yet, besides the fact that Hawkeye gets a little bit banged up. But tell me about the watch and like what you thought. I mean, I thought obviously Kate Bishop's immaturity kind of showing a little bit here.
Yeah, and it was such a they brought that watch out in the opening scene, right? Or not opening scene, but the opening episode, one of the first scenes when Kate's at that party. And
it was the black market auction, right?
Yeah, and it's like obviously they don't just show it to show it. Like it's coming up at some point, but we just
Chekhov's Rolex.
and we just haven't heard anything about it until now. So it's such weird pacing with 6 episodes and how they're doing these shows. Like I feel like this happened with Winter Soldier, with Falcon and Winter Soldier as much as anything too. Like the middle episodes, like they set up stuff at the beginning and then they were like, we should have just done 4 episodes, but we need 2 more, so we have to like spread this out thinner. I think that's kind of where this disappeared and everything. But yeah, Kate's inexperience, not following up on the tracks, not following up on what else she was doing. Like she was so single-minded in that moment, just trying to figure out what Jack was up to, that she wasn't even worried about the, whatever other stuff that, if something's coming from Avengers Compound at a black market auction, you should probably like take note of that a little bit. Like it's probably
100%.
something important. But Laura's the one that's most interested in this. And so this is where this theory, apparently this has been out longer than just this episode being released. It's been out for almost a year. Is that if you watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I don't know if anybody did, I didn't watch the whole show, but there was a character on there named Mockingbird who is a very popular MCU character. She's an Avengers team member. She's I'm trying to think. She's on pretty much every team at least some point. She's just very skilled S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. Basically what you would see from a regular S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, fighting ability, spy tech, all that good stuff. Super spy extraordinaire. But she's married to our boy Clint Barton in the comics. Very, very steamy. They've gotten divorced a couple of times. They're apart, back together all the time, but they're together. They fight together. They had a little bit of a comic run.
You
together.
Really have to be in love to get divorced and then remarried.
Exactly. Yeah. Like that passion really has got to be there. So it's there. And I think they're together right now, like in the current run, whatever. But my belief now is seeing this, Laura's very interested in this. Like Clint wasn't even really thinking about it. She's like, what about I heard about the Rolex. What about the watch, whatever. So how likely do we think it is that Laura is potentially this character, maybe Mockingbird, maybe just another S.H.I.E.L.D. person, but somebody that's, being held up in the family farm? Like she hasn't left the farm. She's never left the farm. We've only ever seen her at the family farm. Is she? Hey, there he is. There's our guy.
We know someone who's seen. Shout out Hollywood Joe.
Of course he thinks Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is awesome. I wish he was here.
Hollywood Joe also thinks like Kung Pao Enter the Fist is a 5-star movie. So we'll let him have it next week. But yeah, no, you're right. The way, especially with the way the conversation went, she's speaking different languages. She's using code talk. That was more than I'm a mom that has a little experience for sure.
And she's been like you said, like she's the guy in the chair. Like she's been doing all this stuff for him, keeping track of him, like knows all his missions, knows everything he's been through, knows all his history with Natasha before all the history that we don't know with them, that they still really haven't explored with them. Like I
kind of like that too. Don't need to know it all. This isn't the Book of Boba Fett. I don't need to know how Hawkeye got out of the Sarlacc.
If you want to read the comics, they'll probably put a comic out. You can go read that, whatever backstory, whatever. But she has intimate knowledge of his missions and everything that he's doing. And the more it adds up, like as you start picking up the pieces and what you've seen from her, the little bit we've seen from her and their family over the years, it just makes more and more sense that she would be this character. I mean, just be this person. And especially if they're trying to decanonize Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is allegedly what they're trying to do. I mean, they don't reference it at all. Coulson was like dead and then was brought back in the show, and they were doing life model decoys, and it was a whole that the show it went off a little bit off the rails from what the MCU was trying to do, at least. So this would be a good way to bring it back, a character that is very important to the Avengers. I mean, I'm trying to see when she debuted here, but just somebody who's very important to the Hawkeye lore too.
I'll never ever get over them getting their ass whooped by Ultron and going to hide at Hawkeye's house, and they're having a separate conversation for the first time ever, and she's like, I always support your avenging. It just feels so funny to say. Like, I don't know why. It's not like it's a nice supportive thing that she's saying. And obviously, if she's a bigger character now, that line kind of sounds a little bit ridiculous, but I always support your avenging just sounds so hysterical, especially when poor Hawkeye needs to fill the freezer just to make sure he can bounce back. But obviously, we're getting the Rolex. Great scene with the lights. I had no idea what was going on with the lights. You knew something was happening. It wasn't just like a Michael Scott hotel party with the strobe lights. And then we get Hawkeye fighting somebody else while Kate Bishop is there. talk me through how you were watching the scene, because I told you like I didn't really get what was happening at first. How did it click for you?
Well, that you talked about Kate's inexperience throughout this episode. Here was the shining example, right? Like Clinton, he did preface earlier, he's not a very good planner. So he's trying to plan on the spot. Probably should have had this discussion before they got there. I mean, I know they were scoping out and everything, but at least like run her through the logistics. Like, I'm going to be the one breaking, you kind of talk me through and we'll get out of here, do whatever we need to do. Kate was like, nah, like I'm just gonna walk in the front door. Like, why would you not just walk in the front door? And I think right when you saw Kate walking, you knew this shit was gonna be bad. I mean, I didn't think it was gonna be a good visit to this apartment to begin with, but I
love the guy with the groceries. He's like, give me my groceries back. You're like a crazy broad. Like, and that's not even like serious. That was literally the vibe he was giving her.
But I jumped out of my seat when Maya showed up, though. Like, spoiler alert, we've been talking about whatever. When she showed up in that apartment, I literally was like, whoo, like I was like horror movie scary because the sound was all messed up and everything. And then we see that Maya's fighting Kate in the apartment. They're going after it. The Rolex is still sitting there, and Clint's like, well, who the hell am I fighting? And that's where we get the real intrigue of this episode. And I think the major point of this episode, the reveal at the end here that we're going to get into, and Clint, this whole 2-on-2 battle, this is what we were waiting for, right? Like, we've been waiting for this since June, since July.
It was great because every time we've seen like we know that Kate Bishop and Clint are on the same team, and every time we've seen a 2v randoms battle in Marvel, they're fighting the two. Whereas when Maya and, spoiler alert, Yelena were fighting, all of a sudden they just start punching each other. So it was like kind of a great action sequence where everyone was fighting everyone. The only two who weren't throwing push-ups or punches were Kate and Hawkeye. But yes, Yelena on the scene, obviously looking for that, revenge that was promised to her by Valentina. I'm hoping we're going to see Valentina in this because obviously, there's a lot of implications there. But how excited are you that, we're getting, what is this, phase 4 crossover content, would you refer to it, right?
Yeah, I guess so, right? Like, this is
first
kind of
time, right? Like, this is kind of the first time
yeah.
where something from one entity has kind of come over and interacted with another entity.
Yeah, and I think we know that's coming, right? Like, we know with the multiverse stuff.
In every way, shape, and form. So this is just the drop
in
of
our
the bucket.
face. Yeah, and the thing that interested me most about Yelena is the timing that she did show up, though, because as we were talking about our girl Eleanor earlier, she made a call to somebody in that apartment as Hawkeye was leaving, and then Yelena shows up knowing exactly where they're heading. And she's got a tracker on Kate, like she knows what she's up to. Kate,
and it ain't Hawkeye's first rodeo. He knows someone. Enlisted a Black Widow, so he's like, that's a problem.
And he was probably, and the fact that he saw that it was a Black Widow was probably just jarring enough for him after we saw like the PTSD he's been going through this whole time and everything. So it adds another layer to what, like, last week we're talking about Wilson Fisk and Kingpin, and I think we saw him. I mean, I think we heard Vincent D'Onofrio's voice, that whole connection with Maya, and then that kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit this week. I mean, they show up, the Rolex is obviously at Maya's apartment, and that's how they kind of tie her in. But the list of Hawkeye enemies is obviously it's bigger than he thought, and that's right. The main point. He had no idea.
They've given themselves a lot of open trajectory in these last 2 episodes. Whereas when you look at Loki, it was like, okay, we've got to get like Kang or whoever is controlling the multiverse in here.
Yeah.
When you look at Falcon and Winter Soldier, the Falcon and Winter Soldier really lucked out with that shield smash at the end of episode 4 because that kind of triggered the falling action of 5 and 6 for sure. But yes, this is very open-ended, and there's a lot of opportunities for where this can go. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like the partnership between Kate and Clint is any longer at the present.
Yeah, I mean, and for good reason, right? Like Clint he promised Eleanor, he's like, I won't put her in danger. This is if you saw Black Widow, you know how dangerous the Black Widow assassins are, and you know how damn dangerous Yelena is too. And he doesn't know who Yelena. I don't think he has any idea of who.
No, he didn't. He didn't have a full realization. He just knew there was a Black Widow. For sure.
Yeah, and so he's gonna find that out soon, right? Like, there's got to be some conversation between Yelena and Clint that happens in these next 2 episodes. And Yelena's not somebody without reason. Like, she is out. She's a hired assassin. She's a trained killer. But if he can, like, get like even to talking to her, and they can start talking about Natasha, like that conversation is going to be convincing pretty damn quick. Like you're going to be able to tell he's not lying about what happened to her in Endgame. Like it's going to be a very emotional moment. It was emotional for him, even just talking about Natasha in this episode with Kate earlier in the time. But the biggest thing is, I think the biggest takeaway is we think we're all these criminal organizations between the Tracksuit Mafia. If we think Kingpin is coming back, getting involved, we know Contessa is up to something with, you know, our guy. What now? It's escaping my name.
Just call him Helper.
Helper. Which one?
I'm
thinking
AKA,
of the U.S.
the
agent,
guy in
AKA.
John Walker. John Walker.
John Walker.
You're right. They really gave him the most like American name ever.
Yeah.
We're not going to need a Captain America. We're going to need a U.S. agent.
U.S. agent.
That was really good because I didn't know that character was called U.S. agent. I'm still a Marvel noob, and that's what makes it fun. So I looked that up, and then I was rewatching that scene, and that like hits like 10 times harder when you know the character. Yeah. Like, and he's John Walker's just such a dweeb, absolute dweeb right now. So I love it. I love the idea of him just being a pawn, just like kind of Yelena's being a pawn. Let's face it, right now. Yeah. Val said that Hawkeye was responsible. Couldn't be less true, even though it's kind of directly is true. But not factual, I guess. Would be
and what the hell does Contessa know? Like, how does she have any like this?
That's
like,
the great part about
we don't
her.
know what she even knows. Like, she could just be we don't know. I don't know if she knows everything that happened.
She knows he took the serum. She just knows all this shit. She just nonstop semi bluffs until she gets caught. That's what makes the character great. And you're obviously like a little bit more in tune to the comics. I've heard from people reading that she's basically like Nick Fury on the other side almost.
She is, yeah. And
that's going to be awesome.
There's a run in the comics that also includes our boy Norman Osborn, who is evidently showing up in No Way Home one way or another. If it's going to be, we're going to get two Normans, whatever we're going to end up seeing in there. But she runs another Avengers team when somehow all the bad guys end up taking over S.H.I.E.L.D. because everybody hates the Avengers, which seems like we're going towards a more distrust of the Avengers or distrust of just any heroes in general.
Superhero entities, I get it. Yeah, 1,000%.
So I think that she's directly involved with that. She's involved with Hydra. She's Madam Hydra at some point, but she also works with S.H.I.E.L.D. at some point. So Contessa's just she's out here just doing what's best for her. Like,
I love that. She's got career flexibility, which is all you can ask for. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, on this breakdown of Hawkeye Episode 4 here on What's TrainWreck Watching, sponsored by, as always, the most delicious pizza in Western New York, Picasso's Pizza. Before we go, Micah, big trailer this week. We're about 3 weeks away now, actually, from, I believe, new episodes. Book of Boba Fett. My goodness, the hype for this thing is out the wazoo. And it's crazy because a year and a half ago, I mean, honestly, in my Star Wars mind, I was demoralized. I was kind of beaten down. The sequel trilogy took a lot out of us. It took a lot out of diehard Star Wars fans because it was basically a big fuck you money grab from Disney. I'm not afraid to say that. I love Disney. I love Disney Plus, but they completely mismanaged the sequel trilogy. And Star Wars is something I love. So it was astounding when you had Mandalorian, not just season 1, but now we had Boba Fett back in season 2 of Mandalorian last year. And not only that, but he just comes back in the most badass of ways, just literally defeating every stormtrooper in sight and then rocket jetpacking 2 troop ships at once amazingly. And now he'll have his own story. So I'm looking very much forward to that. What are you most looking forward to now that we've seen a little bit of the trailer and how they're showing that they're going to definitely get into a little bit of his comeback?
Yeah, I'm excited to see how much of the lore they decide to explore, especially like the Mandalorian side and just kind of like where that all falls, like how much I don't know. I'm just interested to see like what his motives have been for what he's been doing. I mean, we know Boba, he's obviously a bounty hunter. He was obviously going to take whatever the biggest paycheck is and everything like that. But he clearly has a code that he has been standing by for a long time. And that's the thing I'm most interested to see, because I don't think it's been fleshed out enough to see like kind of where he lays on that thing and where like when he gets faced with a more morality choice in this show eventually, like what way is he going to go? Like we know he helped out our guy Mando when he could, but that was a very different situation than things that we could see him in. So I'm just most excited to see like kind of how they align him going forward. And if there's going to be more to this story or if he's going to be involved more, in this story, that the greater story that they're trying to tell here. Because when Mando came out, I don't know why I didn't think, knowing what the MCU has been, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a cool story they're going to tell. Like, wasn't thinking of any expanded, Star Wars stories, more story, like other connected entities and everything that they're planning on doing. So I'm very excited to see where Boba hopefully falls into line with the connected story they're telling with Ahsoka and everything else that's leading to, what was it called? The Disney Plus Star Wars exclusive event that's going to come from all these shows. So yeah,
that would be amazing.
So whatever it ends up being, I'm very interested to see where Boba lies in there, good side or bad.
And what's the line from the trailer? I'm just was it that Jabba ruled by fear and that he wants to rule by like respect or something like that? Yeah. Basically, that's going to be a huge thing. I can't wait to see that, and I can't wait to see one idiot in that hive of scum and villainy. Maybe he's had a little too much blue milk or something. Somebody is going to make a dumbass Sarlacc comment, and they are going to pay the motherfucking Mandalorian price, and I can't wait.
It's going to be great, man. I cannot wait. What a gift. What a gift from Disney Plus.
I agree. They're hot right now. And the key thing for me, keep it between Favreau, Filoni, and Waititi. Okay? We can't have anybody else on ground. I respect Abrams as a creator or whatever, but there was just such a blatant disregard shown for the building out of the Star Wars universe and the continuity. It just absolutely rubbed me the wrong way. I only trust that's my holy trinity. Literally, whether it's Marvel, whether it's Clone Wars, whether it's animated, Favreau, Filoni, Waititi, in them I trust. And in us, you should trust, folks. Make sure you're following along. Obviously, SoundCloud, Spotify, Instagram, Apple Podcasts. Get on anywhere you can, because we're always excited here at What's TrainWreck Watching. We don't get hype. We stay hype, because it's not about tomorrow's plans. It's not about what's coming up this weekend. It's always about next week's.